What you're about to hear is a conversation that took place before we left on our American Idiots tour. This is with Eliot Rosenstock. He is a clinical psychoanalyst, and he wrote a book about using Žižek in the clinic. So special interest to people who are wondering about the significance of psychoanalysis or Žižek when it comes to, clinically, like actually trying to help people or whatever. With that said, we met up with Eliot when we were in London and also for the event in Oxford. Great times hanging out with him and Kirsty. Thank you so much for the hospitality, for the warm welcome, for the good hangs. It was a great time. Everyone, I hope that you'll enjoy this episode. Stick around till the end if you are interested in getting involved, or if you don't want to get involved but you want to help support. There are ways. Just stick around till the end of the video. Also, I've placed an ad somewhere halfway through this video that you can either listen to on podcast or watch from YouTube. The ad is something that I wrote with my buddy Brian Weeks, who is teaching the Introduction to Illich course. By the time you're listening to this video, the course will have already started, but it's not too late to get involved. Same thing with so much of the stuff at Theory Underground, where the courses are available on demand after the fact. And we try to make them so they'll be as good listening later as they are if you're there for it live. Of course, there are special advantages to being there live for a course or for any kind of performance, but there's always also something special about being able to binge something after the fact. With that said, we're going to turn it over here to Eliot. Enjoy. You love authority.
Starting strong.
Yeah.
I was thinking before, what's the first thing I should say? I was like, should I say fuck authority? And then I said, no. It'd be better to say I love authority and cops. So I decided on that. So sorry to bombard you.
No, yeah, it's hilarious. Well, so context, we just started the recording. This is an episode of the podcast, but it's also live for the people. We got 40 people in the live chat right now. What's up, folks? Good to see you all. Glad you're here. Make sure to smash the like button, blah, blah, blah. But for the people listening to this in the future, podcast and everything, this is from the Epic Marathon live stream of April 18th, 2024. And Nance is here, as he usually is for these marathons.
Hey-o.
And we're joined by Eliot. I'm going to set you up to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, man. But first, I'll just say, yeah, the whole reference to cops and authorities, like this is following from a conversation with our token Trotskyist. And when I say token, I mean he represents all Trotskyists. And if anybody else comes around and says, well, I'm the real deal Trotskyist, we're going to say, get the fuck away. We don't want you here. Like whenever I tokenize somebody, it means anybody who's like them is not allowed. But they're the exception to the rule. All right. But with that said, Eliot, you are a clinician, or you're into psychoanalysis, and you do work in the clinic, and you've written books about this, using Žižek in the clinic as the title of one of your books, as well as Ego in its Hyperstate. You want to wave those books around?
Yeah, steal this book, please. And I'm forbidden from saying anything further. But yeah. I assure you, steal these books. There we go. Look at that vaporwave guy. Big mirror ball. Very cool covers. Stock photos. They say, pick your stock photo. And I said, okay, that looks cool. Vaporwave guy. You got to go vaporwave guy. So
was vaporwave guy, was that really a stock photo?
Yeah, both were stock photos. This was a good one. I looked for that. I typed, I searched for it, obviously.
That's killer.
But from Adobe. Yeah, they're both good.
I love that cover.
Yeah, thank you. So, right, why do I love authorities and cops so well?
Yeah.
Why? No.
We need prohibition, or without prohibition, everyone will become psychotic. That's the Lacanian position, right?
Exactly. So there's a question, revolutionary psychology. That's what this is about, revolutionary psychology. A revolutionary proposal for a new endgame in psychotherapy. And then there's this, which no one knows what it's about except me. You can't know it. It's about my obsession with figuring out egoism. But I'll tell you more about that undoubtedly. But I think there's a question with authority. There's a big question with authority, right? What's your first thought about cops?
Me?
You don't like them. Well, not you, but this is a big other.
Okay.
Do you like them? I said I love cops, so I'm not confused. Dave's like, fuck, what do I say? What do I say to this guy? No, but like, naturally you want to hate cops, and naturally you want to hate the father, and so on. So there's all these anti-psychiatry movements, and this exists for a good reason, right? Maybe you've met somebody who takes mental health information and combines it with dominant ideology, and then uses it as a very powerful concoction to just like bash people over the head with it. Not unlike an Amazon manager, as Dave, so well known in Dave lore, Amazon, but it's just used as just part of the neoliberal toolkit, and it's just in general used as an authoritative wedge. Even Foucault, who can blame Foucault, who was diagnosed with homosexuality by a psychoanalyst? And then Foucault says, and I diagnosed him with a case of psychoanalysis, right? Like, obviously. So you gotta love anti-psychiatry. And of course, this is your first thought. So then, what in God's name is revolutionary psychotherapy? Shouldn't it be abolished? This is like the problem. This is like the Hegelian problem. So the question is, what is mental health? Should we throw away this ideal? Should we throw away idealism? And in Theory Underground, you're saying there's something I don't like about the Marxists. There's something missing. I kind of want to talk about human spirit. I feel like I can't do it by talking to the Platypus Society. I feel like the Platypus Society isn't really getting me to the consciousness level that I want to be at. Also, then there's this question, wait, why am I talking about the violent overthrow of Russian kings, and I'm trying to like figure out what's happening? So, right. So we have to talk about like structuralism. Like, we are keeping the mental health signifier, which is an ideal, and it can be a very totalitarian ideal because you can kind of apply it in this very ideological way to everything. But kind of what I suggest in Žižek in the Clinic, a revolutionary proposal for a new endgame in psychotherapy. It's a lot. Do you want to read this? Maybe, but I'll sum it up for you. Basically, I propose that you have to ground the authority of the therapist in this mental health ideal of the client, which means you then have to figure out what mental health is, which is like a difficult thing. So I have authority only insofar as I am creating mental health in this second person. And so now you have like the big problem. And if you remember me being in Boise, we're all talking about Jordan Peterson because, he doesn't disagree yet. I have the mental health authority, and I'm gonna, craft the ideal, and we're gonna take chaos, and we're gonna order it all up in a big pile. I don't know. So okay. So what is the mental health ideal?
I just shout out
I've been working on that one.
You've come a long ways. I don't think you even tried. Nobody was doing impressions at the conference, but I think since then we've all gotten significantly better at talking like Kermit the Frog.
Well, that's a good one. That's a good one too.
Well,
like
it's the child archetype, and you've got the virgin, and I can tell that you have the openness trait, which is not so common for men, but you do have a masculine trait, though. Actually, he actually just did this with Destiny. I saw like half of that conversation, and I was like, oh my God, he's like sitting there doing a little personality quiz on Destiny. It was the funniest thing.
And isn't that fucking stupid? Like, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, so Jordan Peterson, he would probably agree with everything I just said to a certain extent. Like, yeah, you have authority, but it's really like, it's really to help your father and, help these guys. So ultimately what I propose, and here's the second book, it's all about egoism, which is ultimately, did I freeze for you? Yeah, I froze.
You're there.
I'm here. Okay. So ultimately you take the person's things which are intuitively important. So this can be done through, psychoanalysis can tell us, through dream theory, you create kind of intuitive symbols that are immediately important to you. They are kind of subversive to your own kind of intentionality. So this is what psychoanalysis has to offer. So you have this kind of one material. Then secondly, you have your own kind of ideals. And I kind of propose the idea is you measure the ideals against themselves, and ultimately you're helping people rationally self-determine themselves forward in their engagement with the world. If that sounds familiar, it's literally just lifted from Hegel. So this is like Hegel's idea, which is the purpose of kind of rationality and history is a rational kind of self-determination, which is occurring. So contradictions become mediated, and then a rational self-determination kind of goes forward and becomes kind of the answer to the contradiction. So this is what I help people do, which is mediate internal contradictions, mediate negative affect. A lot of times people feel ruled by negative affect. If you don't know, in Hegel, negative affect plays a very important role for logic. And in psychology, negative affect will often kind of prevent people from doing logic or rationally self-determining. So in dream analysis, I do it a little bit differently from Freud because I'm informed by Hegel, which is to say you have an initial kind of cutting impression of your dream symbols, but ultimately we're taking an essential component from the dream and we're developing a concept. So Hegel's logic, being, essence, concept, but dream, essence, concept. So this is how I sneak Hegel in. And the critique in here is all about how the mental health industry just basically uses dominant ideology and posits it as absolute, but really it's dominant ideology. And that's why you need Žižek. Žižek will introduce you to this idea. And a lot of people have not been introduced to this idea. So here in Theory Underground, everyone knows Žižek, of course.
Yeah.
He's like the master. But, when you do mental health work like I do, most people don't know Žižek. Most people don't know Freud. Not a lot of people know Freud, who Freud is. People don't know who Jung is. Once in a while people do. People kind of think of dream analysis as maybe something they've heard culturally, as like maybe a spiritual thing. So I actually do 4 dream analysis groups per week. And I'm ashamed to admit, but I will admit it. I don't even want to fully disclose this, but I do one philosophy group, philosophy and mental health.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I won't say more about that. It's top secret. But I do 5 kind of groups.
Is this because I also know you're involved with Philosophy Portal? Is that with them, or are you doing your independent philosophy?
It's not. I cannot say, but it's through platform capitalism. This is made possible through platform.
Dude, that's everything here too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I get people who, they want to learn about dreams, and ultimately you can teach them how to do being, essence, concepts and liberate them from dominant ideology, which they didn't know that mental health authority did. And you get them in touch with their own self-interest or rational self-determination. That's the second Vaporwave book. So little do they know. People, I get good reviews. People are like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Oh, he kind of knows a lot. But do you realize how much pain I've been through to take out all that garbage like Foucault experienced? And my problem wasn't his problem, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of potential garbage in psychotherapy. But so to caveat, I love cops, but only after I'm done with them. So there you go.
I wondered if
after they've been sublated into the world spirit of what should be,
Dude, we've got to sublate the cops. Like I trained jujitsu at this gym where one of the coaches is an ex-cop, and he'll talk shit about cops. And but they also have like a blue stripe Punisher flag on the wall, like that sort of Blue Lives Matter, like Punisher flag. Wait, actually, sorry. I'm just thinking. I'm actually wrong. It doesn't have the Punisher. It's just the flag with the blue stripe, right? But
there's an America bar. I'm in the UK. There's an America bar with the same Blue Lives Matter. I did tell them, you should take that down. It doesn't really mean the same thing that you think it means. And they go, oh, the boss likes it. And I go, okay.
Of course he does,
Yeah.
It's just normie shit, man. Like, of course they like cops because they probably have an uncle who's like actually a good guy or whatever, who is one. And ultimately, like, I don't have any, it's just it's funny how like people are like, yeah, I hate the player, or hate the game, not the player, until it's cops. And it's like, I just feel like as a teenager, that made sense. I just hated cops. Now I'm just like, there's a lot of things that need to be abolished, but the order of priority and what needs to be abolished first does not start there. Probably stops there. But that's just my opinion. But I wondered if
I think there's a big question in terms of course you need law. This is like philosophy of right. It's like, do you believe in law and the state's ability to mediate and to act against citizens? Like, this is like a very difficult concept. It's not a popular concept. And I would say there's a lot of problems that obviously come up when this is occurring, right? And there's not a lot of due process or, things that can handle this kind of level of society, of the breach of law and the enforcer. Like, shit goes wrong, clearly.
Well, this is one of the things my coach was kind of saying was like, they should be taught how to do things like jujitsu, like so that they can, instead of shooting somebody, you put them in a headlock. And he was using examples of people who get rowdy at a parade. You got some drunk guy who comes along and is like messing with somebody, and the cop's like, stop. And then the person starts messing with the cop. And then the cop, it's like, well, what do? Do you tase the person? Do you shoot the person? Or do you just put them in a headlock and then they just go to sleep for a second and then they're humbled and then everybody's just like, yeah, that needed to happen. And it's like, I don't know. It's probably not ideal, but I don't believe in ideals anyway. At least not these kinds of ideals. So I'm interested in the kinds of ideals you are talking about.
You better start believing in ideals, son. You're living in one.
Yeah, that's true.
They say.
Well, and that's actually, I want to ask you about what we kind of were going to talk about today, but I also kind of want to let this go wherever it goes. But first, I want to follow up on everything you were just saying. What is The program will resume shortly, right after this DIY commercial that is not for any sponsor other than ourselves. Thank you for watching.
Whether we are already fully in the grip of the techno-capital AI singularity or not, we likely feel as though there's not much we can do.
As allies of future generations, we aren't giving up so easily.
To quote the author of Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front, we wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what our life and our children's lives may be.
This fear is not new. The question of technology, media, and institutions became unavoidable in the 20th century. Yet when we think of institutions, the most radical critiques people have encountered came from either Michel Foucault or Jürgen Habermas. These thinkers towered over the theory scene in the 1970s and 80s as radicals took their long march through the institutions.
When it comes to theories of social change, the tendency is to put our hopes in leaving the existing institutions, the current order failing, or some overnight revolution to bring us salvation. Otherwise, we lean in and do the best we can with what's afforded by the existing institutions. Reform or revolution, nothing ever changes, so we keep putting our hopes in education.
So progressives say, if only more people had access to better education, then that would solve the problems. But they have not thought seriously enough about the nature of our institutions, or this thing called education that they offer.
The most radical critiques of schooling that teachers encounter issue from Paulo Freire, Bell Hooks, and Henry Giraud, but none of these ever got to the root of institutions themselves. The theorist who did this was Ivan Illich.
Gaining brief stardom in the 70s, Ivan Illich was the father of the deschooling movement, inspiring hundreds of radical schools and generations of homeschooling parents. But this characterization of his work as the anti-school guy was his ultimate demise, for that only takes account of a surface level of his work. Illich was immediately misunderstood and quickly abandoned.
The issue goes far beyond schools. We spend our entire lives mediated through institutions that totalize, instrumentalize, and reduce humans, all of our possibilities, to something predictable, calculable, and exchangeable, easy to control. The interests of state and capital here overlap entirely. Our desires are thus turned into commodities and our time energy into labor power. Illich doesn't stop here, though, for institutions are not the whole picture.
When people think of schooling today, they think of studying for exams, not learning for the sake of learning. When people think of hospitals, they think of treating illnesses, not human-to-human care and well-being. When people think of transportation, they think of speed and efficiency, not the possibility of sustained, regular, and meaningful connections. When people think of reading, they think of collecting information, not lingering with an idea. The move from schooling to schole requires serious inquiry into the conditions of possibility for this mode.
I'm calling for a sincere and earnest revival of Illich. While most introductions to Illich limit their engagement to his earlier works, a series of polemics against schooling and institutionalized consumer society, I want to go deeper and lead us to a more robust understanding of who and what a human is for Illich. With his help, we will reopen the question of what we are, what we can be, and the types of lives we are willing to give our time and energy to bring into being, if there are to be humans in the future.
This course begins on June 13th and goes through July 4th, 2024. It meets on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can enroll at theoryunderground.com/courses/Illich-1, or just click on the link in the description. For those who just want to spend a month really thinking about schooling and institutions, this is a fantastic way to do so. But for those who are looking to go deeper with a community of truth seekers who are going beyond the current theory scene to form an intellectual milieu, this is a fantastic way to do so, because the Theory Underground 2024 conference at the end of October 23rd through 27th is going to have special panels for presentations related to this course. Any student of this course will have opportunities to present, and those presentations can ultimately culminate in submissions that may be accepted into the anthology we are doing on the critique of schooling and education, to be published either at the end of this year or at the beginning of 2025.
Thank you.
We hope to see you there. What does it mean to measure ideals against one another in this sort of rational self-determination way?
Measure ideals against one another. That's a really good question. Let's talk about truth and compassion. This is like a big one. Empathy for other people and truth. Say I really didn't like Nance's hat. Like I just hated it. Like I just thought it was really, it's fine, of course. It's fine actually. But say it wasn't. Say it wasn't. Right? And so then I had to say this with compassion or empathy. Well, how do I say this to Nance? How do I tell him? He'll be so hurt once I tell him how bad his hat is. So I do have to kind of figure out here, my rational self-determination, I have to figure out concretely what I'm going to say about Nance's hat. Be like, Nance, I could say, my first thought is like, oh, where'd you get that hat? That's not really being truthful. See, that's more, I'm erring on the side of compassion there. And so there's another question of, oh, Nance, I really don't like your hat. That doesn't seem very compassionate. So ultimately, like, I have to make a rational self-determination of how I will proceed. And I kind of have to eat the negativity so to speak. And I have to kind of deal with the negativity of my existence. So I could remain quiet or remain kind of behind and passive, and or I could interject and then deal with kind of like the intrinsic imperfection of action. So once I have concrete action, I have contradiction. And I think this is like a major lesson from Hegel, which is to say, you will not be able to create this like smooth, perfect brain utopia, the smoothest brain possible. You have to end up reconciling with contradictions. And where are the contradictions? They're not in material. They're not in me speaking to gnats. Like there is no contradiction in material. This is like Hegel's point. This is also Sartre's point, but he forgot Hegel's point. There's contradiction within the ideals. And ideals can be very basic on this level of compassion and truth, right? So ultimately, we have to kind of make a decision of how we're going to proceed. And the reason why we consciously kind of do this is a lot of times we make decisions and we feel guilty about the kind of negative. And then we kind of worry and feel guilt about the negative. And we say, I made this, but I did this wrong. So if you understand that you're making rational self-determinations which have consequences, it helps you kind of understand that I'm really not going to please everybody. I'm really not going to find the perfect thing that just fits with every symbolic structure in the world. I am actually going to have to determine myself in some way, which will put me in opposition to certain things and also, you know. But ultimately, the second book, this guy, going into this. Ultimately, if you do this well enough, I would say you're able to create structures and systems and support kind of rooted in psychoanalytic intuition that you really feel supported by and you feel connected to. Like Theory Underground, for instance. You created Theory Underground as an articulation and a structure that you're connected to, right? And within it is, it's not necessarily the material, although the material is cool, like the logos and stuff. It's the ideal within it, like in the way concepts are mediated, right? And it's a structure that does this. So the material holds the ideal. This is Žižek's lesson as well. The ideal is in the material. It's like the Zoolander moment. It's files are in the computer. Okay, that's enough. That's enough manic like ranting.
The files are in the computer.
Exactly. The ideals are in the material.
My favorite part of that whole movie though is like when he's like, what's this? A school for ants? It would have to be at least 3 times this size.
So true.
And then at the end, he starts a school for kids who can't read good and want to do other stuff. And in that sense, I feel kind of like Zoolander because I also want to do that. So that's my favorite movie.
Bro. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So the reason I was like, dude, I got to bring Eliot on was because you got Timenergy pilled a while back and you were like, well, I mean, I'll let you say what you want to say about that. But I think in the lecture where maybe that happened, you
right.
Like, I made some reference to Timenergy is not libidinal time, but it is related. And in fact, in this book, I do a little bit of that, like trying to figure that out, like talking about ways that desire and drive in their contradiction can generate energy and blah, blah, blah. And I've come a long way since then. I wrote that thing like a freaking year and a half ago, probably. And so it's like pretty excited to write a follow-up, but I don't want to write that follow-up too soon without like a lot more conversations with people who are thinking a lot about libidinal energy. And so let's start with how you got Timenergy pilled and then how you've been thinking about how it relates to libidinal economy.
I mean, Timenergy, it's a good concept, but there's a question of like who is working through Timenergy in different ways. So there's kind of left accelerationist idea of where future is going to be automated, which will save us labor. So Timenergy is all about kind of also saving extraneous labor, right? But this is not on the level of personal Timenergy. So left acceleration doesn't cover that. Then you're going to get Justin Murphy next, and that's just so epic. for the win. Pepe's. No, Justin's cool. So Justin is really, really doing this in terms of like, what is the new century going to look like? How do we get agency in the new century? And Justin is talking to like every tech person with an idea. He's making things, and I'm sitting in the thing, and I swear to Christ, there's Peter Thiel. I told you this maybe, but I'm like, fuck, it's Peter Thiel. There he was. And I didn't say a word to him. I was so proud of myself. I didn't say, give me $1 million. But like, he's creating these tech. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, something. There you go. Might have worked. Anyway.
Probably.
Anyway. See, you should have. Anyway, too late now, Dave. Too late now. Miss Base Mansion. Miss Base Mansion with Curtis Yarvin.
So wait, did you go to his mansion, like the Justin Murphy mansion?
I talked with Curtis for like a long time, and then Justin came up to me after. He said, "What did you guys talk about?" I'm like, "Fuck if I know, man. Like, fuck if I know." No, but we did. Yarvin had an interesting idea about Hegel. I was telling him about Hegel, and he said about Hegel. He said I don't like German philosophy. So yada yada yada. He said something that was he's contributive. He said you have to actually do the history of contradiction. So you have an idea that history is contradiction, but you actually have to do the dialectic, right? You have to actually do the concrete. I think that's a good critique that a lot of people who do Hegel do not actually get in there and do the history. Anyway, so you're going to talk to Justin Murphy. He is, talking about exits, hard forks from the normies. I'm totally for all that. And so the question of will time energy eventually have a kind of basis in something besides, I would say, broadly libertarian reaction, which is very powerful because it focuses on exit and freedom, right? So I think it is actually necessary to kind of think in these labor terms in terms of blocks of time, like you were saying, Dave. Blocks of time, equality of kind of, thinking your group in a kind of way is this really fair? Am I checking in with my group? Am I exploiting other people? Because these questions, I would say Justin and the libertarian cabal is less concerned with this. It is about kind of getting into new technologies and this kind of thing. That being said, like Justin's like a super interesting guy. There's like hard workers out. You're a hard worker. Justin's like a ridiculous hard worker. And he's a former PhD supervisor, which is wild that he decided like, I'm going full freedom, type this on Twitter. I don't care. Like it's really unprecedented in history, right? His existence is unprecedented. I think this is why he has the following that he does, that he has this level of skill and he's saying, no, I'm going exit.
Right.
So people are working on this like freedom question, I think. And we'll see how that goes in terms of with time energy and with the libertarian tech people. I think the stakes are big because the systems are crumbling. People want escape from neoliberalism. And where are they going to go? Are you going to go to Theory Underground or are you going to go to Cozy McFrog? McFrog Fuentes, right? So this is the stake, right?
Yeah. Now, do you know anything about Samuel Loncar and the Becoming Human Project?
No, not enough to say yes. I think
cool. Yeah, well, Samuel, he's fucking awesome, man. He actually met up with us in New York City when we did the event with Finkelstein there. And he gave this talk on cancel culture as a form of secular orthodoxy. And then he talks about the history of orthodoxy from a philosophy of religion standpoint, because he's into like Christian atheism and all this, not in the Žižekian way, but that's kind of how I'm seeing this conversation between Loncar and Murphy is like, well, we've got the Christian atheist who takes religion super seriously and doesn't like most atheists. And then you've got Justin Murphy, who's like the Catholic accelerationist. And they basically could be considered left versus right in this conversation. One likes Marx a lot more, but he's into class, but he's not a Marxist by any stretch of the imagination. But the thing that they also both are perhaps different from most other people on the internet is in how that sort of their elite academic education and their time spent in philosophy has them like at this point now where they're doing public philosophy and they're super interested in the future and technological development. And basically Samuel Loncar has like no respect for like tech bros and for crypto bros and the whole like, and it's like Justin's kind of like that guy though. And so it's like getting the two of them to see where they agree and disagree. Like, I think that's going to be interesting. We'll see. It could be lame. It could be really boring. We'll see. But I think it'll be interesting. Yeah. I think that it'll be beneficial for everybody, actually.
That sounds, I think, I don't know if I'm mixing him up, but maybe he's a guy who had a theory about the plateauing of AI capability recently, in terms of there's a theory that AI has basically done what it's going to do at this point, and there's, it's overestimated or overhyped. I don't know if that's true. Yeah.
Maybe.
So yeah, I mean, I really like, I think you can't deny when somebody like Murphy or this kind of, there's some appeal, and you have to say like, what is the appeal of this? And it is like, all of us are trying to basically get free from the post-boomer era, you could say. Like, there was a great victory in civil rights, and ever since then there's kind of been a slow degrading of the question of what is exactly at stake here. And you're talking about like social justice warriors or in this kind of thing, but it's the question of right, like law. Like, there was a law that had to be passed and enacted, and a structure had to be created. And when people try to take this into the interpersonal realm, something gets lost, right? Because if somebody didn't have a right to vote or a right to have a house somewhere, right, this is not kind of the same question as how should two people talk with each other? How should we engage with history and texts and all of that? This is like cultural, and it's a bit more ambiguous. And I think this is why we kind of find the people who are concerned and maybe are like post-left, and maybe like we're not necessarily doing DSA calls and things like that, because you're concerned about something that does relate to psychology. It does relate to mental health. It does relate to what does community look like? What are the standards for interacting with people? What are the texts and how do we engage with these texts, right? So there's a major kind of divide here. And so to establish, I think, something besides the libertarian reactionary current that's nonetheless like freeing, I think that's what Theory Underground can be and Timenergy is. And even if you talk with these people and invite them and things like this, there's something different about this than going kind of pure libertarian route, right? It's like, it's not quite the same thing,
Yeah, well, it doesn't work. Like, I guess at a certain sort of short-term, interest level, yes, you could relatively free up some time energy by getting enough subscribers and then just do your thing. But if you actually get the theory and it clicks for you and you give a fuck about humans, that's the other part. That's a big if. But if you care about people and their possibilities, and you understand that most people are broken shadows of what they would be if they weren't in a job-centric society fighting for, just to meet their basic weekly bills, right? Then time energy cannot be, there's no solution for it at the libertine level, right? And I just had somebody who, I love the stuff he writes on Substack, but he commented on this. I've been serially publishing sections from my book on Substack, as well as from Underground Theory. In fact, the piece from the first of 6 pieces by Žižek actually went up on the Substack today. So that's there. Check it out, everybody, when you get a chance. In fact, if you do !Substack and enter in the chat, it should actually bring up the link with a little thing about that. I think I've been messing with the Nightbot, setting it up. But what am I talking about? Why did I get into Substack? What are we talking about? Oh, he commented on the Timenergy thing, and he was, because the section is the section that says capitalism's not gonna, like, capitalism can't give us our time energy, but neither can communism. And obviously there might be a version of communism someone has in their mind where it would give us that. And then there might be a version of capitalism that someone has in their mind. Like the libertarian would say, yeah, if without government interference, everything would be so much cheaper and people would be able to take more time off, right? Because that's their ideal model. And for the communist ideal model, it's like, well, without a classless society and all this exploitation, yeah, people would have all this more, free time. So of course, like the ideal models, sure. But as far as like the stigma that these words carry and then the actual realities that they tend to point to for most people, like the way we think about it, there's not a solution there. We need... What the solution for me is like everybody getting time energy pilled. Everybody just has to get time energy pilled. And when that becomes a value and a priority, let everyone argue it out and see what comes of it.
Dave, I have things that might help the time energy pill.
Yeah.
Ask what an egoist thinks of communism.
What does an egoist think of communism?
Dave, I'm so glad you asked. So
yeah, it's a great question.
Like, it's a great question. So communism doesn't work, but what an egoist is more brutal towards communism. It's like, what can I fucking grab from their desiccated husk? Like, what am I going to grab from communism? And there are these ideals of labor, equality, and kind of a communal relation that I do think is really, really necessary. So I think, communism ultimately is a revolutionary ideal. And for me, I use it as a guide to think maybe structures can be put in place for this purpose in terms of, in a revolutionary sense, structures can be taken over. We can start thinking about interpersonal relationships in a different way. We can overturn things that are oppressive. So for me, this is like an essential thing to take out of communism, even though you go back to your local communist groups and they're all dicks. It's like, oh, these guys are dicks. But nonetheless, you still take this from communism. I say for your average working class person, that is more important than, for instance, I know the libertarian projects of technology, and you're going to have everything's going to be automated, including, fetuses will grow from your pods, and Elon Musk's will have 100 little replacement babies so he can populate the world. Like, this is not relevant. I swear to you, it's not relevant to you. Like, it really will not help you. This will help you, like, in terms of structural empowerment, your connection with structure. This will help working class people. So I think also the eye on working class people, like if you're working class, if you're not in the tech world, or if you are in the tech world, I would still say explore like what this kind of socialist possibility has to offer, this idea of revolutionary structures, not simply exit. You can exit, but take it back. That's why I love cops. Ergo, I love cops. Yeah. But not it's like no, but it's like authority structures, they can be taken over, and ideals can be put in them and changed, right? Right.
And W1's Dumb 3 in the chat said, I am a tech bro and a libertarian. What can anyone hate about that? LMAO. Hey, I just want to say, I got no problems with any tech bros. I would rather hang out with Elon Musk shooting 100 rockets off into space per year than, I don't know, Warren Buffett, like just being a Wall Street dude who just spends his money on the dumb NGO, networks that have been here for the last 50 years and do basically nothing. And I'm not saying that shooting rockets into space necessarily does something, but it's kind of like Amazon. It's the best distribution network that exists today for getting our stuff. It's the best one. They're laying the foundation for something that could be, potentially seized, You could do all kinds of things with it politically. All kinds of projects could be done with that. But it's a great network. It's better than Walmart. With Walmart, quick aside, with Walmart, I have to go there to get something and then come back. And while I'm there, I'm probably going to get a bunch of things I don't need. But if I get it off of Amazon, I'm serious. The vans for Amazon go through my neighborhood like 10 times per day. So you want me to spend gasoline on a car that I don't have?
Bezos and his empire.
Yes, please. Everybody give it up for Bezos. The guy paid me to write my books in the bathroom. I've got mad respect. But no, they should actually let people listen to earbuds. They should stop doing the swing shift thing because it's killing people. I've got all kinds of problems. I'll write a book about it eventually. But for now, let's bring it back around. So tech bros, we don't hate them. But also, like, in a lot of cases, they're just rich people who don't have...
Dialectically...
Hold on. I just got to say it. They're just rich people who didn't learn what kings for thousands of years have known. And that's it. You have to pay philosophers to hang out with you so that they can give you good ideas. They're just, they think they're the smart guys because they're rich. And that's the issue, because they're usually not very smart. Like Kurzweil, are you fucking kidding me, guys? That guy's a dork. And everyone's been telling him he's smart, but he's really just rich. And anyway, so that's the kind of where we're coming from, just so you know, for the people who are new, who are like, well, what do you got a problem with tech bros? No, just like Kurzweil and dorks like that. Yeah, it's kind of cringe. But look, if you're into coding and you're into, and your gateway into the life of the mind was Musk and Peterson, welcome. There's a lot of really cool shit in the world, and I don't hate you for coming from that. Anyway,
most people are not involved with philosophy. Most people are not deeply left or right. So tech bros and us end up talking to each other because if you're interested in theory or philosophy, you'll wind up in the same spaces. And I would say to tech bros and Peter Thiel, I didn't say give me $1 million when I was sitting. Give me $1 million, I promise you. I don't promise you. It might not be worth anything. But for tech bros, if you think about structures in a way that is more revolutionary, more egalitarian, less exploitative, it will better yourself. It'll better your experience of the world. You won't just be a fake philanthropist tossing money and questionable. You'll cultivate your soul. So the Stoics, I know we don't talk about the Stoics on Theory Underground, but the Stoics talked about letter 59 of Seneca in terms of on joy. What is the difference between pleasure and joy? The difference between pleasure and joy. Joy is deep, and it has to do with the pursuit of virtue and philosophy. A pleasure that maybe your ketamine or your microdose or whatever, or your billions of dollars, that's pleasurable, don't get me wrong, but what will give you the true joy, I swear, is a philosophy that you are absolutely sure is not exploitative. It's not just a philosophy of why you're better than another person, but if you learn kind of egalitarianism, if you learn how to take these lame neoliberal kind of like stupid kind of pseudo pretends to be like the I am the extension of civil rights, but really it's just like some random capitalist who's kind of like annoying that you don't like. I swear, if you really figure out virtuous, non-exploitative relations and structures, you will have a deep joy per Seneca, letter 59.
No, I think, dude, but I just have to say that if I didn't read Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, I would be, I don't know who I would be, but I wouldn't be who I am. And that I think that stuff's very important. So really quick, there's a tab I left open because I wanted to hear what an egoist has to say to a communist. But where I was going with that thought was I had someone in the comment section, like I said, I like his Substacks, but he was saying that the solution to time energy seems pretty simple. All you need is decentralization. And he was saying that the issue is that like 50% of the economy is built around people doing all this mediation, basically like filling in the like being like, oh, trust us, trust this, trust that. And he's saying we just need to post trust way of organizing. And so like, of course, this is some like cryptocurrency based philosophy. I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I was like, decentralization just sounds like laissez-faire capitalism, which is just going to turn right back into the same thing. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. But you said something about libertarians, and we have one in the chat here. So what do you think about decentralization and all that? Like,
I'm so glad you asked,
from?
Dave. What a excellent question. Totally unexpected, like out of left field, like decentralization. I think this whole obsessional of, libertarians, there's chaos outside my computer. I need to crypt because people are going to hack it. I'm like a Žižekian here in terms of like, yeah, there's a guy following me and then there's a guy following him. That doesn't really affect working class people.
Yeah.
Really. Like maybe it will if you're doing some like reverse penetration testing, if you know what I mean. But that's not me. That's not most people.
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what that means. Reverse penetration testing. If you're doing penetration testing for a computer company, what are you doing?
Oh, okay. So this is like hacking stuff related. It's like
I said, reverse penetration. So then it'll affect you. But if you're just an average kind of person, right? It really doesn't matter like this like extensive like computer security thing. So I think it is a personal project that they are trying to like make it impossible for fellow like tech geniuses, and they are tech geniuses, being able to pwn a system on a hardware level. But like, I'm a therapist. I pwn the context. You pwn, psyops. Like this is like it's a totally different thing. And I would argue it's more relevant to most people's day-to-day life than these like very, 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 very secure decentralized computer systems, right? Like I said, the Žižek, and yeah, there's a guy following me and then there's a guy following him, whatever. Like, I don't care, right?
I like
That's
it.
my answer to that.
That's a good answer. No, it's a very good answer, actually. It's a wonderful answer. Really quick, we have like 5 to 6 minutes here, and I want to give Nance a moment to say anything he wants about anything we've said, because he's such a good co-host. He never talks. So give him the floor here. I'll be listening with rapt attention in the other room for a second here. And he can kind of ask you anything he wants as well. And then you can kind of like set it up for your kind of closing statement. And then I just want to say, we're really looking forward to having you back already. I'm looking forward to reading your books and then bringing you back. That's going to be a lot better. And by the way, I referenced you. I forgot what I said. All I know is that you're in Waypoint. So I'll have to relook at that, and then we'll have to talk. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So earlier when you're talking about...
Read this one. Anyway. Yeah, Nance.
Oh, read Ego and Hyperstate first. So when you're talking about we're doing this, I don't know, maybe almost utilitarian weighing of ideals, like with a rational self-interest.
Right.
Like I definitely see how that works on an individual level and like a day-to-day level. Like I don't know if that alone can be kind of extrapolated to anything universal. I don't know.
Structural.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So how do you use this theory when you're facing Amazon, for instance, since Amazon's a good theme, right? You can, even if you cannot change Jeff Bezos's idea and just be like, maybe just one big union, Jeff. Oh yeah. At least you can see the ideals that are enforced and the true force of them, right? So part of this idea is not just rational self-determination. It's seeing the kind of true force that ideas do have. So Bezos has an idea of customer service. You get it done. It's just the customer. You don't think of yourself. And it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree because it has a lot of power to it. And if he offers any of us $1 million to be a manager and to reproduce this ideal, I'd think about it. $1 million is a lot of money, like for a year,
for sure,
right? So like money has this power and this force to take people and to take space and to take territory. So when you're looking at kind of the world in terms of what is the mom and pop store in Amazon. You can see, okay, what is the force of the ideal the mom and pop store is? Well, personally, I would get this in there. I would try to go there, but really not out of, maybe Bezos is right in some way. It is more convenient, and I like getting this here, and then I'm probably going to order this kind of thing because it's cheaper. So there's a kind of underlying self-interest in terms of my idea, like what will get priority. Am I really going to critique myself and go against capitalism to the point where I spend like $2 more at the moment? Probably not. Some people do. I know some people that are very serious about ethical consumption. I'm not going to pay for the knockoff brand. I'm going to pay for the good brand that does the original product because I respect it. Like, I don't. So ultimately, like, ego in its hyperstate is about ideals having force in the world. And it's a little bit different than utilitarianism. There's no kind of pseudo mathematical formula. It's indeterminate force, but it's kind of, you're generally kind of understanding things as ideals or ideas within structures, right? So I would say, yes, you cannot rationally self-determine the structure of Amazon necessarily. And you might need a concept or a cause to address that. So kind of further in this book, I talk about different causes, like what is the cause? Is it going to be Is it going to be unionizing? Is it going to be Marxism as a cause as such, right? Will Marxism as a cause, and I join in what force does Marxism have today? What force does it have in the U.S. insofar as, like, does it have kind of force on its own, or does it need kind of something else? I would argue, it needs something a little more tangible. So I think also egoism, this kind of like dialectical egoism, TM, although that's kind of like what plenty of people have used this. Fichte and Stirner, you could both say dialectical egoism. But I mean, this kind of allows you to think of things in a more concrete way. So like, it is idealist, but Hegel isn't idealist insofar as like he believes in like unreasonable utopias. The idea of idealism is it is actually more concrete than materialism, because ideals do have a certain concrete quality and function, right? So ultimately, I'm not pitching idealism because of utopia. I am kind of in this direction of concreteness. Like I am for concreteness, right? Of kind of ontology, like what is in the world. I would argue that this is actually about what is in the world concretely, not about an ideal as such, but like forces of ideas as force, kind of.
Like to develop a kind of realism that you can then kind of sublate into a universalist idealist project, and build a bridge to get outside yourself. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I mean, it does, I do think a lot about, even in dream theory, you have to think of particular associations and kind of universal projects. And I think you need an ontology like this looks at particular projects and understands the force of an Amazon warehouse. It understands the force of reaction in a way that I don't think that is a bit less rhetorical than, oh, it's a paper tiger. It's like, no, sorry. There is like some force to it, right? And as you bring on Justin Murphy, you'll be able to hear the force and vitality of libertarian forks and exits and this kind of like, his vibe, so.
It's all vibes.
Yeah, we had him on one time before, and that was very interesting. It's going to be even more interesting now, I think. You're right. It's a thing, and it's definitely a direction that people either go in or flirt with at some point. And yeah, it's interesting.
I'm interested. I'll be watching. Yeah. I'm excited for Murphy and see what happens.
I'll watch the chat to see if you ask any questions, if you do, right. I might bring them up, but cool. Anyway, for now, so good to have you on, man. Thank you for coming. It was an honor.
Absolutely. Take care, both of you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of the bullshit and just want to get down to it. Big ideas, rigorous thinking, and ultimately liberation from necessity.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation. Theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. Besides a commitment to publishing certain underground theorists and popularizing certain fundamental concepts, we have toured the United States and are touring Europe to promote our ideas, courses, and publications. You've been reading Underground Theory.
Amazing book. I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first, obviously, I have to get freed myself, so the two of us are able to do this because, as Mikey said, build it and they will come. Well, I tried and I built a website and platform. I had my own app and everything, but it's been really buggy and it's more than one person can handle, and that's, a really good lesson for me. And so for now, what we're doing is moving it to a temporary intermediary platform until we are able to get some more serious funding. And ultimately, we want to be in a place like this, a real brick and mortar digital nomadic mecca where people can come from all over the world. But also, the app was really expensive, and so by quitting it, I am now able to save a lot of money, and with the help of my patrons and the students at Theory Underground, especially the monthly subscribers, I am officially able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. So thank you so much, everybody. This is one huge step forward. With that said, several subscribers did not migrate from the now defunct app to the new setup, and I'm guaranteed to lose people over time. So please, if you want to get involved, become a subscriber. If you're not even sure what this is all about but are just curious, then I've added tier 0 and tier 1 for very basic kinds of access to what we are doing behind the scenes. If you don't have any time or energy to get involved, but you do have some money to help support this project from afar, then please check out the Patreon. My patrons over at Patreon make the podcast and public YouTube possible. Thank you. As for once-in-a-lifetime events, check out the new poster for the American Idiots Theory Underground European Book Tour. Paris, Brussels, Berlin, Vienna, Linz, Krakow, Glasgow, London, and Oxford from April 27th to May 25th, 2024. 2 events are already fully booked out. Save a seat at an event by getting in contact with us ASAP. Finally, the call for proposals to our conference in Mexico.
What's up, everybody? TUCon 2024 update here. It's not happening in Mexico anymore, but it is still happening on October 24th through the 27th.
The change was made because a lot of the people that wanted to attend and that were expected to attend said they could probably afford to travel if they had more time advance notice. So save up for June 2025.
If you have to choose, right? Because this one that is happening this year is happening physically in Boise, Idaho, because we have a lot of collaborators and fellow travelers and co-instructors there. But you can attend virtually for this one. You won't be able to attend virtually next year. So yeah, if you have to choose, attend physically in 2025. The call for proposals already happened. The writing workshop for proposals already happened. You can still get the links to both of those. Just shoot us a message and ask for those links. We'll get you those. And the form goes live on June 1st, and the deadline is June 15th. So if you're attending physically, let me know ASAP.
Get in on it.
All right. Finally, last little thing here is to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon. The Patreon is for people who are too busy to be students or subscribers at Theory Underground, but who want to see more of this free content on the podcast and YouTube channel for Theory Underground. You are the ones who see something of value in the free content being made available here, and you want to see more of it. Your patron pledges at Patreon are a real motivator for me, so thank you so much. Especially thanks to Marilyn Lawrence, Bert Vanderkar, Carl Vanderlip, Nikolai, Sahil Kumar, Zuxandra, Darian Large, Tyler Murphy, Max Mackin, Al, Algeri, Ben Rosenblum, Atlantic Airlines, Lewis, Matt Payne, Neil C., Simon Condon, Yiz, and Schwabkinson. Thank you.